Welcome, everyone, to the Girlfriend Book Club's monthly discussion. I'm Shelley Emling, the editor of the Girlfriend newsletter. I'm also the moderator of the Girlfriend Book Club. Tonight, we are discussing the mostly true story of Tanner and Louise. That was our pick for July. And I'm so pleased that the 60-something thousand members of the book club chose this as our July book club pick. It was an amazing read. And I'm also pleased that we're welcoming the author of the book tonight, Colleen Oakley, to join us. I could not be more pleased to welcome her. So welcome, Colleen.
Hi, Shelley. Thank you so much.
So nice to have you here, really.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. I told you earlier I've been lurking a little bit in the book club, and it's just such a positive, wonderful corner of the internet. So it's awesome. I'm so excited to be here.
It is a wonderful book club. We say that we're united by all things literary.
Yes.
So, Colleen, first of all, I think this is your fifth book. Is that right?
It is. Yeah, this is my fifth book.
I did not realize that until I was doing some research on you for the last few days. Is this how is this book different from the other books that you've written already?
You know, the first four books are all, I call them unconventional love stories. And I actually consider this to be a love story too, although it's not romantic. But certainly in the first four books, the love story is the romance is the central theme of the book. And in this one, it's more about this friendship, this relationship between two women.
Yeah, so it's a very different, I guess, than a little bit from. And then I wanted to know. I saw that you were interviewed earlier about what films inspire you, influence you when you're writing, which I thought was interesting because you said you're always asked about what books and authors inspire you. And you were like, thank you for asking about films. So I'm going to ask you the same question. What films inspire your writing?
There are so many. I am a big movie buff. I mean, I'd be remiss to certainly not talk, first of all, about Thelma and Louise, which was a huge inspiration for this book. You know, I first saw that movie when I was probably 14 or 15, and I just loved it instantly. And I'm pleased to say that it absolutely holds up. I rewatched it again as part of my research for this book, and my gosh, Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon, iconic. They are so funny. It's just so excellent. So certainly that movie, but I really just run the gamut. Any movie, television show that has a great story, great dialogue, is such an inspiration for me because it's all story, right? Whether it's book, movies, television, I just love a really well told story.
I think, was that Brad Pitt's first role? I digress, but I
think
it
was, and that is not a digression. We certainly should talk about that. Yeah, it was his first role, and he certainly helps make that movie a joy to watch, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. So everybody in the book club is going to want to know, how did you come up with the idea for this book, The Mostly True Story of Tanner and Louise?
Yeah, so this book was really inspired by my own relationship with my grandmother, who was one of my very favorite people on earth. Her name was Marion Oakley. She lived to the age of 92. She passed away about 3 years ago. And she was just one of my favorite people on earth. We had a very special relationship, a dear friendship. We would talk on the phone often. We actually went on our own road trips.
Really?
She had a wicked sense of humor. She was very pragmatic. And I like to say that my favorite thing about my grandmother was that she had one rule, and that was when you went to visit her or went on vacation with her, she didn't care what you did all day long. If you spent time with her, if you went shopping, if you did tourist things, but you had to be at 5 o'clock cocktail hour.
Really?
And I like to say nobody in my family actually knows what happens, what the consequence was if you missed 5 o'clock cocktail hour, because nobody ever did, which either means that we are avid rule followers or raging alcoholics. And I'm not going to say which.
I read that you drink wine out of straw or something like that. I don't know.
Maybe sometimes.
So I always ask authors, was there a character or a scene or a chapter that was particularly hard to write, whether it was, 21-year-old Tanner or the much older Louise or Louise's children or the FBI agent? I don't know. Was there somebody, or George? Was there a particular character you struggled with slightly, or no?
In this book, I did not. I would say the FBI police work was the most difficult, only because I had to familiarize myself with that and do a lot of research and interview different experts just to make sure I was getting that protocol correct and those job details. But no, this book really was such a joy to write. I had so much fun writing it, and I hope that translates into people having fun reading it. Particularly the text exchanges with the kids, Louise's children. I just had so much fun. I just laughed to myself as I was writing them.
Did you base that on anything like those text exchanges?
I will say I'm the youngest of 3, and I'll leave it at that.
No, it was great. And I just have to ask, because I actually lived in St. Louis for the first 10 years of my life. And I'm not giving too much away by saying that there is a scene with the arch in it. Why did you choose that? I'm just really curious as to how that chapter got in here.
I'll try to say this without giving too much away too. That is actually based on something that happened to my family.
Really?
When we did a cross-country road trip from Atlanta. We live in Atlanta. And my husband and I, for some reason, thought it would be a great idea to take 4 children aged 4 to 9 to Denver, Colorado in a minivan. It was a 23-hour adventure. Yeah, I don't know what we were thinking, but one of our stops, we stopped multiple times, and one of our stops was at the St. Louis Arch. And something very similar when we tried to get out of line at the Arch happened to us, as happened to Tanner and Louise. Yes.
Did you actually go up in the arch? I just have to.
We didn't. We actually left because we were on kind of this hectic time schedule with our road trip, and we had been, delayed quite a few times that day, as happens when you're traveling with 4 children. And we realized when we were in line, we were not going to have time to do it because the line ended up taking so much longer than we thought, and then make it to my brother's in Kansas City for dinner. So we kind of chaotically got out of the line and made a big scene, and then we're stopped by a security guard.
Well, I just have to ask, what would your getaway car be if you get away?
Yeah, that's so funny. Probably my Honda minivan. I'm just not a car person, and actually all of the car stuff. I don't know the first thing about them, and I don't care. Like, I love my Honda. But my dad is the one that helped me with all of that car stuff, because he is a car guy. Yeah. So loves all the car things.
So are they involved when you're writing the book? Are they reading?
If I need something like that, I know who to go to. So like when I didn't quite know about the Jaguar or what kind of car to make it, I called my dad. And listen, he's been trying to get somebody in my family interested in cars and wants to talk about it for my whole life. And he was so excited when I called, and I said, I'm ready to talk about cars.
Oh, that's great. So this is a book, of course, about a friendship, first and foremost. So what are you hoping the reader takes away from this when they read it?
Yeah, I think first and mostly, I just want people to have a good time. I want it to be an escape. I like to say there's enough terrible things going on in the world, and if you can really escape from all of that and have a good time with this book, then that makes me so happy. And secondly, I just think, in America, we don't do such a great job, idolizing or respecting people as they age. And so if it can make people think twice about, maybe an elderly neighbor or a grandmother or an aunt or anybody that they could maybe spark up a conversation or, start a friendship with, then that would also be amazing.
Yeah, that was my favorite part, is that she thought she knew Mrs. Wilt, and actually she really didn't know her at all in a way. And it was just amazing. So again, we're talking to Colleen Oakley about the mostly true story of Tanner and Louise. So I hope everybody is enjoying this conversation. I also wanted to talk, because I didn't really realize this, and I haven't read your debut novel, but I did read about it today, and so I apologize. But it was called Before I Go. And it said, I read that it was a poignant look at life and death and letting go. What was it like to write that first debut novel and get it sold? And if somebody has never read anything by you before except for this, is that the book you would advise them of yours? Because often people watch these and they want to read something else by the author.
Yeah.
Would you advise them to read Before I Go, your debut novel?
So what I would say, this book is, Tanner and Louise is really fun and funny. And all of my books have that kind of sense of humor in them. Before I Go and my third book, You Were There Too, are also pretty deeply emotional and tearjerkers. So if you're looking for that kind of release, then yes. If you want something that stays, mostly upbeat, then I would pick Close Enough to Touch or my last book, The Invisible Husband of Frick Island. Right. So that's how I like to advise people. And having my first book sell was truly one of the most incredible experiences of my life, because it was a dream come true. It's all I wanted. Like from the time I was a little girl, I remember telling my mom that I wanted to be an author. And so, I went into magazines as part of my career, because in college, I didn't even know how you became an author, how one went about publishing a book, or even writing one for that matter. So yeah, it was really, really quite a dream come true.
So how long did it take you to write that debut novel?
Well, it's interesting because I wrote a book before that took me 2.5 years, and it never sold. I had an agent and everything, and we couldn't sell. We were on submission for about a year. Yeah. And so Before I Go ended up taking me about 8 months, which is really quick. That's the shortest I've ever written a book. And then we sold that. My agent sold that within 2 weeks, which,
wow,
would have been wildly exciting anyway. But I think coming off of that, kind of devastation of my first book not selling just made it all the more exciting.
So I did read that you had wanted to be a writer since you were little. I was going to ask about your background. I think you studied journalism in college. And can you tell everybody a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I really attribute a lot of my love of reading and writing to my mom. She is a huge literary buff, and she actually, for her job, she teaches adults how to read and also tutors adults to get their GED. And so literacy is just so important to her, and it was just such a big part of my family life. I mean, we went to the library all of the time. Some of my earliest memories are just my mom would come and, dump us like in the children's section. We'd be there for hours because she was tutoring people or volunteering at the library or whatever. And it just really became my happy place. And so I've always loved reading. I feel like reading and writing just go hand in hand, because I was reading children's books. I tried writing children's books when I was 5 and 6. And so, I just naturally always wanted to tell stories. And I think I just gravitated toward journalism because then I was telling other people's stories, which was just as fun for me.
What does your mother think about your success?
She loves it. We have a really good time together because she comes with me on all of my tours. So really? we have our own little like Tanner and Louise road trips going on. She brings the crossword puzzles. It's really, really fun. And we have a good time together.
So what's your writing process like? I know a lot of people want to know that. I mean, did you know the end of the book when you started writing it? Did you have a really good outline, or did it change or evolve as you started writing it? And also, do you set aside like 8 hours a day to write? I mean, what's your process like?
Yeah, so my process is very chaotic, and I don't recommend it to anyone. So I don't outline in any way. I'm such a disorganized person, and it just doesn't work for me. But I always know like where I'm starting and who my characters are, and what the story is about. And I know pretty much where I'm ending. But I have no idea how I'm going to get from point A to point B. And I just sit down and write.
You sort of know like vaguely how the story is going to go, and you've got the characters in your brain.
Yes.
But you're not 100% sure of how it's going to evolve. You just write first chapter, second chapter. So
exactly.
You don't skip around or anything anything like that?
I don't skip around. I do edit as I go, which is also something that they will tell you in every class not to do. So don't take my advice. But I think it's also the way my brain works. I was in magazines for so long as an editor that it's very hard for me to not edit as I go. And so when I get done with what's considered a first draft, when I hit the end, I have a pretty solid first draft. Now it takes me like a year and a half to get there, sometimes 2 years, because I'm editing as I go, which really slows down the process. But it's worked for me for 5 books so far, and we'll see if it keeps going.
So do you set aside, do you say I'm going to write every single day for 5 days in a row, Monday through Friday, or are you pretty self-disciplined about how you?
I am not self-disciplined because that is just also my personality. However, I do consider it my full-time job. So I get up at 5 a.m. most mornings because I have 4 kids, and I try to squeeze in about an hour and a half of writing before they get up, because that's just the quiet time before everything's chaotic. And then once I get them off to school, then I'll write for a couple more hours. Some days I have to do publicity and marketing stuff, Some days I'm talking writer friends off their ledges that they're on. So every day looks a little bit different. But yes, I definitely, when I'm drafting, I write every day.
So was there any point of this book, any part of this book that evolved or changed? It didn't go as you thought it was going to go when you were writing it? Did you have a vision of how it was going to play out till the end, and then something changed as you started getting into it, or no?
Yeah, I think a lot of things changed in this book because I don't outline. I'll think things are going to go one way and then they completely go a different way. I don't know if I can pinpoint anything specifically because I wrote it so long ago, but things definitely evolved and changed as I was writing it, and things will surprise me, like I'll be writing a scene and I'll go, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen, but that works.
And you said your grandmother inspired this, correct? Quite a bit.
Yeah.
And she died a couple years ago, so you were very close with her. So did you really model Louise on her?
I did. And I really started writing this book right after she passed. And so it was partly cathartic for me. I really got to feel like I was spending just a little bit of time with my grandmother as I was writing it. And, all of Louise's little witticisms would crack me up, and I'd think about my grandma. So it was fun in that way.
Well, I have to read this because I don't have it memorized, but I know in the book, Louise says, people always said life was short, but it wasn't. Not really. You could cram so many different lives into one, be so many different people. Is that something you believe in life, or is that something your grandmother said, or where did you get that very interesting passage?
It is something I believe. It's something that I certainly would talk about a lot about life and what I thought about life and what my grandmother thought. We would have those conversations in depth. And also with my mother. My mom gives great advice, and she said something to me, when I was struggling as a new mom, and I was also trying to be a freelance writer and do all the things and felt like I was failing at everything. And she said, Colleen, you can have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time. And that it's so true. And it really stuck with me, and it really helped me take the pressure off of trying to be everything at the same time. Right. And I do think there are seasons in life, and I think you can do so many different things in your life, just not all at the same time. So
you must be very good at dialogue, because the dialogue is very good in this book. Is that something you pride yourself on?
Thank you. I enjoy dialogue. I enjoy a witty back and forth. And so I do work very hard. There's a lot of drafts go into that dialogue until I tweak it where it feels very natural banter.
Yeah, and I forget what the love interest, what the young man's name is. It's escaping me. That was
August.
August, yes. So was that hard to write about him, or no? That kind of
it can be hard to write because you want the chemistry to feel real and not forced. And so, and you don't want it to be too cheesy. But it was very, very fun to write because I just consider him kind of that Brad Pitt eye candy character.
Exactly. That's what
I really loved.
He's like Brad
Pitt. Yeah, the banter between Tanner and Louise about him was my very favorite. That was very fun.
So now I have to ask you, what authors inspire you? What book have you read this year that kind of blew your mind, or is there or something is something on your nightstand you're dying to read?
Yeah, it's so many. I'm inspired by there are so many incredible authors out there. We are just so lucky to have so many great books. This year in particular, there's probably, oh gosh, there's so many that I loved. Notes on an Execution by Dania Kukofka was incredible. It's like this thriller about this serial killer who's on death row, and you know he's going to be executed like in 12 hours. But it's told in flashbacks from the perspective of his mother, his ex-wife, and I believe, oh yes, the detective of the female detective that actually tracked him down. And it just had me on the edge of my seat. It was so good.
What's the name of it?
Another book that sorry?
What's the name of it again?
Notes on an Execution.
Notes on an Execution. Okay.
Yep. And then I also loved The Woman with the Cure by Lynn Cullen. Have you heard of that one?
I have, but I haven't read it. Yeah.
Oh, put it up on top of your list. It's excellent, excellent historical fiction about the little known female scientist who was integral in finding the vaccine for polio, which,
wow.
I mean, who knew that a woman was even involved in that? It was so good.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really good.
So someone asked, why did you call it the mostly true story of Tanner and Louise?
Yeah, so for many reasons. First of all, I love a title that grabs you and makes you go, huh. So I love when you think, well, what's true and what's not true? And also because, you know, you never get like the full truth from Louise's point of view. Like you're never quite sure what's happening and what's true and what's not.
Yeah, you do feel quite a bit like you're Tanner in a lot of ways. You're trying to figure out what's real and what's not. What is she lying about? What's she not lying about? Is, you know, that really did hook me, I have to say. So
exactly.
So I know that you live in Atlanta, have 4 kids. I just want to ask, what do you do for fun? I can't imagine you have a lot of time when you're not with your 4 kids or writing, but what other things do you like to do?
I'm really kind of boring. I read a lot. I do crossword puzzles as often as I can. I love cooking. I love trying new recipes. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I love to travel, but that's always with my family, you know, so.
So is a road trip in your cards, in the cards for the coming year?
Always, because who can afford to fly 6 people somewhere? We drive everywhere.
So has this been optioned for a film or a TV series? I didn't read up on that today, but
yeah, it has. We haven't officially announced it, but it has been optioned. And, you know, with the writer's strike, there's so much on hold. So I think we have some writers attached and hopefully they'll be able to pitch it to some studios here. Hopefully that's a good one.
So you're working on another book, I would assume.
I am. Yep.
You say anything about it?
Yes, I can give just a little teaser. So it's about this couple who's been married for 19 years and they're, you know, kind of on the brink of divorce. They're not sure how it's going. And they decide to celebrate their anniversary at this very upscale 3-star Michelin restaurant on the coast of California, very isolated. And a group of underground eco-terrorists bursts into the restaurant and takes everybody hostage. So my tagline is, if they can survive a terrorist attack, maybe they can survive anything, even marriage.
That's really good. So did you come up with that idea while you were still working on this book, or is it you did? So how did that come to you? You're just sitting somewhere and you think, are you laying awake at night and wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and think, oh, that would be a great idea? Something comes to you, or you're watching another.
Yeah, generally it's like some kind of news story or something that I hear on NPR or something that just like triggers this interest. And in this one, it was this interesting story about this guy who became so obsessed about the environment that he became one of these kind of eco-terrorists. And I was like, what in the world? Like, it was fascinating to me. And then, you know, the novelist's wheels just keep turning until it turns into some crazy book idea.
So it'll be another year and a half, hopefully.
Yeah, I think spring 2025.
Oh, great. Oh, wow. Fantastic. And then
Yeah.
finally, I always ask every author, because the girlfriend is all about female friendship and the power of female friendship. I assume you have some great girlfriends, I hope. And I just want to know, I mean, what do you do with your girlfriends? What do you love to do? Do you go
Oh
away
my gosh.
for weekends, or do you hang out there in Atlanta, or, what do you love to do with your girlfriends?
Yes, so we do a lot of girl trips together. We'll do weekend trips, weekends away or even staycations, like we'll all get a hotel room. I have a couple writer girlfriends that I'm very close with, and we love to do writer retreats. So we will all kind of hole up at a cabin and we'll cook together and drink wine and spend the days writing and talking about our works in progress. And then the nights, chatting away. It's so fun.
Do your girlfriends read what you write before as you go when you're writing chapters, or does your husband do that, or no?
Oh no, my husband does not, because I want to stay married.
So he doesn't read behind you as you're going through the no.
No, I let him read when everything is completely done and there could be no changes made, and all he can say is, "I love it."
And he better say, "I love it," right?
That's right. That's right.
That's great.
But yeah, I do have some girlfriends that read, especially if I get stuck and just need a little bit of feedback, then yeah, they'll read as I go.
Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like anybody to know about the mostly true story of Tanner and Louise? Besides,
No, but I
if you
do
haven't
just
read
want
it, go read it.
Yes, go read it, and thank you for reading it. Thank you for choosing it as the girlfriend book club pick for July. I was so honored. So I appreciate it. Thank you, and spread the word to all of
Yes,
your friends.
spread the word. Yes, thank you so much, Colleen Oakley, for joining us. Everybody read the book if you haven't already, but I think most everybody has read it. And those that are watching right now, please stay on the Girlfriend Book Club page, because I'm going to be posting about 6 or 7 conversation starters so that you guys can talk about the book amongst yourselves. But I think it's a fan favorite. Obviously, everybody loved it. So thank you so much, Colleen Oakley, and best of luck. I can't wait to, I actually want to go back and read your debut novel also, and then I can't wait to see what you come out with next. That sounds like a great book.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks for joining us. Good night, everybody.